Hi everyone, here's the new video about G-Stomper Studio. This time we will explain how to configure and use the programmable multi-mute functionality. Let's get started. The programmable multi-mute feature is dedicated for live usage. It can be used to mute, unmute multiple tracks at once. It can be programmed and used on a mixer, FX, the master sum effect screen. Once programmed, you can also turn it on or off on all screens that provide trackpads, main drum machine, sample note grid, sample track grid, and sampler drum pads, VA-Beast synthesizer, VA-Beast polygrid, and VA-Beast keyboard. There are two types of clicks we can make on the multi-mute button. With a short click, we can activate or disactivate the multi-mute function. With a long click, we will activate or disactivate the configuration of the multi-mute mode. Multi-mute states. Let's take a little look at all the possible states that the multi-mute button can have. The first state, identified because the button is disactivated, is the multi-mute off state. In this state, all configure tracks will be in the unmute state. The second status of the button is the multi-mute on status. This state is identified because the button is surrounded by a little blue rectangle. When the button is in this state, all configured tracks are muted. Let's see an example of how this state works. The third status of the button is the multi-mute configuration on, multi-mute off status. This status is identified by the yellow border surrounding the multi-mute button. By means of this state, we will be able to select the tracks to be affected by the multi-mute by toggling the respective TX buttons on and off. Since the multi-mute mode in this state is disactivated, the configuration does not affect the actual audible track mutes. Let's see an example of how this state works. The fourth and last state of the button is the multi-mute configuration on, multi-mute on state. This state will be identified by the little blue and yellow edges surrounding the multi-mute button. Thanks to this state, we'll be able to select the tracks to be affected by the multi-mute by toggling the respective TX buttons on and off. Since the multi-mute is activated, the configuration directly affects the actual audible track mutes. Let's see an example of how this state works. An important point to bear in mind is that the multi-mute configuration is saved per pattern, so we can have dedicated configurations for each part of your live setup. Quick access to the multi-mute, various screens. Once you've programmed the multi-mute, you can turn it on or off using the multi-mute buttons on the mixer, FX and master sum effect screen. And also on screens that provide trackpads, e.g. on the screen's main drum machine, sample note grid, sample track grid, sampler drum pads, VA-Beast synthesizer, VA-Beast polygrid and VA-Beast keyboard. To activate or disactivate the multi-mute mode on these last screens, that is, on screens that do not have a button exclusively dedicated to the multi-mute mode, we must follow these steps. Make sure the trackpad mode is set to one of the following: play menu, select mute, or select menu on the VA-Beast related screens. Long click the mode button to turn the multi-mute on or off. Once again, we hope this video has been useful to you. If you want to be aware of new videos we are publishing, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and follow us on social networks. See you in the next video!